Data protection and privacy teams are under more pressure than ever with new laws, AI oversight, data breaches, and the constant expectation to do more with fewer resources.
That's why TrustArc built a modern privacy and data protection management platform powered by Arc Intelligence. It unifies your tools, automates the work that slows you down, and surfaces what matters most right when you need it.
From guided quick actions to our intelligent assistant, Ask Arc, you get credible, contextual answers backed by expert research, not generic AI guesses.
Finally, privacy that works the way privacy pros work.
Learn how TrustArc helps teams move faster with confidence at trustarc.com/serious-privacy. That's trustarc.com/serious-privacy.
You're listening to Serious Privacy by TrustArc. Please welcome our hosts, Paul Breitbarth and Kay Royal.
What does it take to develop a privacy compliance program for a global business-to-consumer company? And what do you need to take into account, and how do you ensure you can indeed comply with all those laws without spending every single day reading and assessing new laws and considering what impact they may have or may not have on your operation? Our guest today is Seán Dunne, the Global Privacy Officer at GameStop. He really knows the company well, given that he started in retail operations almost 12 years ago. And now he is responsible for global data protection compliance, with laws ranging from the familiar GDPR and CCPA to the less familiar Canadian anti-spam legislation, but also the privacy laws of Australia and New Zealand. That is covering the globe in real time. My name is Paul Breitbarth.
And I'm Kay Royal, and welcome to Serious Privacy. So thank you, Seán, for joining us. We really appreciate it. It's been a long time since I've had the opportunity to speak with you, so this is absolutely a delight.
Thanks for having me.
For you, the podcast is just catching up with all your friends, isn't it, Kay?
It really is. It's just all about those things we can't connect in person, so I'm just going to bring them all on the podcast. If you're out there and you've missed seeing me, just hit us up. We'll bring you on the podcast. All right, Seán, you ready for the unexpected question?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, I was able to select this one because I know you'll have fun with it. It's fill in the blank. It's not a good idea to experiment with blank.
It's not a good idea to experiment with blank. Trying to stay PC here. We've children in the audience. No.
We actually do.
It's not a good idea to experiment with untested compliance measures.
Ooh, look at him sticking to the topic of the day, untested compliance measures. We're going to have to ask about that one in more detail. What kind of experimenting have you been doing?
I have no comment on that.
Oh.
I would say untested chili paste. That can become very dangerous very quickly.
And we're back to the cooking show with Paul and Kay.
Of course. What else?
Paul, Kay, and friends.
Exactly. Okay, so I take my questions from this book called Q&A for 5 years. And so it gives you the same questions, and you just fill them in on a yearly basis, and you have your 5 years worth of answers. So I'm going to give you some of the answers I've done in rows of years. It's not a good idea to experiment with drugs. Just say no. To experiment with drunk driving. It's not a good idea to experiment with guns. My last entry was it's not a good idea to experiment with democracy.
You got adventurous on that last one.
Yeah, right? That's a little deep and philosophical, huh?
And let's just confirm for the audience that only the last one is something that you actually did experiment with, and all the other ones you have no experience whatsoever.
I have I have to say I do have experience with guns, given that I grew up in the South. But yeah, no, I'm not one of these that has a concealed carry permit or anything. So, all right, let's get to the topic of the day, which with Seán is going to be pretty broad. I worked with Seán as a consultant before handing him over to someone else's hands. And the questions that I kind of played with when I was inviting you on here, Seán, have nothing to do with anything with GameStop in the news and everything to do with how do you manage a global privacy program, especially when you're in Ireland and you have a lot of U.S. operations as well as operations in the rest of the world. So we've been talking about new laws that have been passing, topics that are near and dear to us, but I really want to hear from a data protection officer who has privacy and security experience, and how are you managing a global privacy program in such a shifting environment?
So that's an interesting question that I was mulling over as we were preparing for this. And it is, I think every podcast, every conversation has to involve COVID right now. So, COVID in some ways improved my program, because being based in Ireland, being based remote from the United States, you have the simple geographic challenges of you can't walk into a meeting room. Well, suddenly your entire business can't walk into a meeting room. So everybody is now on a level playing field of how we engage. And the communication tools have evolved so rapidly in the last 12 months. We have Zoom, Teams, you name the dozens of competitors out there, and the collaboration tools that go with it. So I'll say that the answer today is not going to include managing people or managing relationships as a challenge. It's standard business, and it's the same for anybody wherever they're located in the world. So that's the one big change I've found in the last year. So, we've had various laws change. We've had 20 plus, I think Paul can keep me honest, or Kay can keep me honest on the number of states. But the number of state proposed laws come up and drop again, pass and fail, so that has created challenge with trying to maintain awareness and keep on track of the changing landscape. But communication, managing business owners, managing a program internally has improved with COVID. Simple fact of communication. That's something which I, being based in Ireland, has always been a challenge regardless of role. Now suddenly everybody is equal.
So would you say it has actually improved your involvement in the business processes from an early stage, now that everybody has to work remotely?
Absolutely. So you consider the drive-by conversations, the hey, I was thinking about how we could use our customer data. Let me run an idea past you. Well, they're less, in terms of standard business operation, they're less natural now in between marketing departments or between IT and marketing and so on. So now you generally have scheduled meetings. And that meeting, the event organizer or one of the participants generally say, oh, we should involve privacy, or we should involve security or compliance. So it's so easy to press that add invite now compared to what you would have had naturally. Now, positive for me as a compliance person, but I'll say absolutely new and difficult challenge for business users, for generating revenue, for looking at new business processes. So I have some condolences for those marketing teams, the way they used to have a bit of a Wild West approach. But yes, I would say COVID has improved engagement.
That is true.
That's interesting. That's not a result that I actually would have expected. Being indeed remote might make it more difficult to be in the meetings, especially. Are your teams on the East Coast or on the West Coast?
We're Dallas, DFW, Texas. So we've a 6 hour to Ireland, a 7 hour to Europe. The timings can be difficult, but I think over the course of time, GameStop has evolved into moving meetings to the AM of US time and the PM of European time. So that's a cultural, just where our offices are located, that has happened. Australia, New Zealand, unfortunately, their time zones don't really match anybody's. So that's difficult.
No, that's for sure. That's for sure. We are on the West Coast mainly, so that's often 9 hours of time zone difference, and that can often be challenging on a schedule.
No solving 9 hour time difference.
And where is most of your team, Seán?
So I would say the majority of the privacy group are European based, especially the dedicated privacy in roles. Considering with GDPR, you have to require DPO. You don't have that in some of the other areas in the world. So we have several dedicated individuals across Europe, whereas across the other entities in the group, we may have shared responsibility. So someone may split responsibility between another compliance area with privacy, or in fact, you could say loss prevention or a business unit with privacy responsibility. Yep. So Europe for full-time privacy individuals, and we have numerous part-time privacy folks across the world.
Which is really good. And I know that you face a lot of privacy issues on different levels, because not only do you have an online presence, you have an in-person presence, and along with the constituents that you serve. What are the challenges that you're seeing there?
Some of the most recent challenges, you could say, with our business channels was how we implement CCPA and our US program. I say recent, this is going back to 2020, but, it's quite easy when you're dedicated to brick and mortar or you're dedicated to an e-commerce. But when you have a blend of both business channels plus mobile app and constantly evolving your omni-channel experience, you have to consider the ways in which you're providing appropriate notice to your users. I think a common omni-channel strategy is a user can interact with your business in any way, receive stock wherever it is located in your ecosystem, and be able to get that shipped to wherever they want. So for a privacy person, you're now saying you have a customer journey that comes in at any point in your environment. It will process across your technology platforms or locations of technology. It can have an endpoint of, again, anywhere in your environment. Is your item physical, digital? Is it located in a brick and mortar outlet? Is it located in a distribution center? So you suddenly have this web of data flow that you have to handle that you may not have if you were a pure e-commerce or a pure physical retailer.
So how have you designed your privacy program? Obviously, being in Ireland, it would make sense to take the GDPR as a basis, but that would not be the only thing to look at, given your global presence and all the other regions where GameStop operates.
That question, again, if you ask me that 1 year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, my answer has changed.
So tell us, what has changed?
The innocence of a European looking at privacy quickly washes away as you place yourself in a US consumer standpoint. So yeah, GDPR is always I'll be honest, GDPR is always the aspirational baseline. So that's not always possible, especially when you look at the areas of consent for marketing and so on. There's some gaps there you're never going to manage to merge. So what we've done is we've implemented and developed over time a single global privacy framework or privacy management framework. It pulls on best practices or use cases from Europe. We'll also look at some of the use cases in Australia and New Zealand. Australia and New Zealand have some very interesting laws there where they've helped develop our program. Then clearly the US with CCPA being the driving force. With then CPRA.
Now, do you see anything complicating it with Virginia in the mix now?
No. I'll say no because it's just one more law at this point. It has nuances, but we're not out to meet the bare minimum compliance measures.
Right. You never have.
Yeah. So if I say I want to comply with CCPA, I would say that's inaccurate. I want to comply with our privacy framework and our privacy policies, which encompass CCPA, Virginia, GDPR, and so on. So our focus as these new laws are being developed or, as they pass, is comparing that with our framework, our structure.
And do you have an internal framework that you've built?
We have an internal framework that we've built. Again, now I will give a note to TrustArc and Nimity that is based on their framework. So a good thumbs up. So yeah, I was not paid for that comment.
And our audience knows we don't usually do product placements here, so.
So I'll say we based our framework off the TrustArc NIMITY privacy management framework. We adapted, and I did not use the out of the box purely because there's some areas that I didn't need to care for quite as much as other areas of compliance. And then there's specific controls or specific activities I wanted to call out in very clear detail. So, for example, when you look at the right to opt out of processing, do you consider that as a European right to opt out, or is that referring to the CCPA's right to opt out of sale? Again, I rather than being ambiguous with a control or an activity, I'd rather be specific, especially with something as important as a consumer right. So that's where we may have evolved some of the controls or activities that exist, and then add some of our own that, our PCI program cares about X, Y, or Z. Why not integrate that? That will help us. So why not collaborate with some of these other compliance areas? So it is a privacy management framework, but PCI is privacy as well.
Exactly. One of the first that everyone had.
As well. So leverage controls that exist. So that's really what we've worked to achieve. And the consent as an opt-in by default isn't something I've won a battle for.
Right, exactly. And so here in the U.S., the controversial points on getting more state laws passed and getting a federal law passed are centered around two main issues. One is a private right of action, and two is federal preemption. Is there one of those or the other that particularly strikes you where you have a strong opinion, or you're just like, I'm just sitting back and watching the show, whatever comes out, I'll deal with?
I'll sit back and react to laws as they pass. We look at some of the laws most recently. I think Florida is the most recent to not get through its...
To not pass?
That was on, private right of action. I'm going to wait to see what laws get passed. I think I've learned from my lesson from 2020 and now 2021 that if I expect every law that gets introduced to get passed, I'm going to be significantly increasing my workload.
Oh, I like that. And okay, so you have to enter our betting pool then. How many state laws do you think need to pass before the U.S. federal will truly have a chance at passing?
That's a hard one because you get a Washington, you get all the corners. You get Washington, Florida, New York, Massachusetts, and then California. Give me those 4 states versus the other 40 plus.
There you go.
So let me say 24. Why not? 24 is my number.
Okay.
I'm not going to give you a year. 24 might be the right year as well.
24 by 2024.
Yeah, I like that. 24 by 24. Actually, that's kind of cool. I'm going to take that. But yeah, because my guess was however many it is that passed this year.
Oh, really?
Not just this legislative season.
This year.
So however many passed this year, that's what my bet's going to be. But
so far, we are at 1.
Yeah.
I would expect something to pass and be seen far more seriously in 2022. With CPRA and the Virginia Consumer Data Privacy Act coming at the end of next year, I think movement. I say something in a broad sense because I don't know what it will be. Will it be just simply the conversation? Will it be Biden making a tweet and driving the conversation forward? I don't know, but I think by the end of next year we'll get far more serious. I don't think
we'll have more clarity on it.
I think 2021 is ambitious.
So now that we are in the betting sphere, any bets on a Privacy Shield replacement?
0 bets. not betting on that one whatsoever. Yeah.
You're not saying it's not going to happen, but you're not saying it's going to happen. You're just not saying.
I'll be honest. We had a safe harbor replacement. We are now looking at a Privacy Shield replacement. Is history going to repeat itself? I'm not going to comment, but will we learn from what we did in the past?
Well, and that's what the news stories are focusing on. I mean, of course, I'm not talking to these individuals directly involved myself. If any of them are listening, please feel free. But, they say that they are focusing on making one that has endurance, that actually won't be overturned because it's taking the right measures into consideration. So if they're doing it the right way, it's not going to be fast, because there's a lot of work to be done here in the U.S. to override some of the laws that we have in place. But I like the fact that they're looking at it being something positive. Now, yesterday I just happened to be on the Privacy Shield website because someone asked if we knew how many companies had actually withdrawn from the Privacy Shield. And I don't know, but it's publicly available online who has gone inactive and when they went inactive. It's not easy to download it from the site. I think you actually have to go into each entry in order to pull up when they went inactive. But there were 4,380 companies still active, and I think it was 1,386 or somewhere right around there that have gone inactive. Now, that's inactive over the entire time frame, not just who went inactive in, the past year. So it's interesting to look at that because we get a lot of feedback from individuals in Europe, companies that say, well, you're still talking Privacy Shield. Well, of course we are. It's an objective third-party set of requirements run by the U.S. federal government that if we don't abide by our commitments, the FTC can enforce it. So it's still a very powerful set of controls. It's just not a data transfer mechanism. So, of course, most of the companies are going to stay in tune with that because, one, they're hoping there's going to be a replacement, but two, it's an actual set of controls that they can say they comply with that are enforceable for non-compliance.
Yeah, and for the replacement of a Privacy Shield or whatever we are going to call it, it is useful to keep the certification running because what we saw from Safe Harbor to Privacy Shield is that the commercial side of the whole arrangement hardly changed. And there will need to be some alignment with the GDPR because Privacy Shield was still aligned with the previous legislation, as I keep reminding people, but that will be small beer compared to all the other steps that need to be taken on the surveillance side, and that will require a lot more. But for now, we can't tempt Seán to give his expectations on this issue.
No.
Yeah.
How about we flip and let me ask, what are your expectations for the new standard contractual clauses?
Well, they are close.
How close?
I've heard the Commission confirm multiple times that they are only weeks away.
Weeks away from May or weeks away from December?
Exactly.
No, weeks away from actually being published from the moment that the representative of the Commission had said that. And I've heard him say that twice in the past fortnight. So I would expect that sometime after Europe Day, which is the 9th of May, they will be public. So that should be probably still within the month of May. My biggest question here is actually, will the implementation period will that be expanded, or is that still the 1 year to update all the contracts with new STCs? Because I saw that there was a lot of lobby to extend that to 2 or 3 years, and curious to see whether the Commission agreed to that or not.
Just in time for the new AI framework to come into play and change things again.
No, that's way too optimistic.
E-privacy then. We'll pick something.
If you look at the amount of lobbying already for the GDPR, just bear in mind how much lobbying AI will get, because AI is much more a buzzword than privacy has ever been.
Very true. Very true.
We did get confirmation, by the way, that also in the coming weeks, the trilogue negotiations on e-privacy will start. Not that means that an e-privacy deal is around the corner and that we will finally see an e-privacy regulation, but at least the negotiations will start.
Good to hear. Good to hear. Again, I'm not going to wait with I'm not going to hold my breath for that. We'll say.
No, I wouldn't if I were you. That's for sure. So, what about Brexit? Any consequences there for you?
Very little direct consequences. We don't currently operate through the UK, so the main impacts we've had are with our data processors that we use, and I will say that in the majority of cases, the data processors have made EU services available. So whether you may have had data hosting in London or in the UK, there suddenly becomes an option to host out of Frankfurt or some other European hub. So actually very little data, or should I say Brexit, impact to us.
Oh, good. And what about additional safeguards? Are there any particular safeguards that you particularly consider critical if we're talking about processors? What are you expecting your processors to put in place?
Or in relation to Brexit?
In relation to GDPR, but also Brexit, since we're talking about processors.
This is an area that I get into many long debates with our third party.
We still have some time.
Management team. I'm not going to pick out any single supplemental measure or specific data protection measure. What is the most difficult or most challenging piece of any processor engagement outside the EU or EEA is just the drafting of the contractual clauses to make sure they're accurate if we're using them. If that's going to be the encryption measures, if that's going to be your access limitations, or your consumer request, I was about to say, your data subject rights. It is the overall evolution of your template contractual clauses to the particular use case. So it is always a challenge. It's always making sure that each processor has the appropriate controls. But that's not
given the data that they're handling and where they're located.
And this is why I get into the debates with and the discussions with our third party management team and procurement team. It is not specific to privacy. Security control, like whether it's personal data, whether it's PCI, any other type of sensitive data, financial records, we always have to make sure the data is being protected. And that's why I very closely link with our security team for these controls and legal team for the contracts themselves. Because if it involves any type of sensitive or secret data, we are all flagged. Each of the areas are flagged to review and give their assessment. So that one case allows our security team being more involved with privacy, but then also our privacy team being more involved with some of the pure security measures or cybersecurity measures, and helps that cross collaboration. So didn't answer your question.
Yeah, remind me. No, that was good. And remind me, you report up through which division?
Up through security. We
up through security.
Have the default US approach.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would not have thought of that as the default US approach.
Would you not?
Until the past few years.
Yeah. I absolutely, if I ask that question, I'll know who was involved with defining a program before it was there. If it's legal, you're talking about a European base. If it's security, you're probably talking about a US base. Now, obviously, stereotypes are stereotypes, but hey.
Right, exactly. All the companies I've worked as privacy counsel with, I've always reported, or privacy officer, I've always reported up through the legal team here in the U.S., even with no external U.S. operations. But you're right. For many companies here in the U.S., the default has been security because they default to who deals with data.
Exactly.
And legal likes to say they don't deal with data.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, what data would they have apart from everything that's in their contracts, of course?
It's kind of like we've said before. Quite often when we work with companies on doing data inventories and records of processing, the sales team is the one that usually says, but we don't deal with data. And I'm like, well, then who do you talk to? Who do you send a contract to? But it's the concept of what is personal data. And that is particularly geographically oriented, I would say. You could definitely put some stereotypes there.
As soon as somebody starts talking PII, you know you're in trouble if you are European-minded.
And that's one of the challenges, actually. One of the key challenges I have with this global program is your definitions. You know, yeah. I misspoke earlier. I said consumer request with European focus when it's a data subject right. However, when you have a shared program or a global standard, they are somewhat equal. Your exceptions are different, but if you're trying to meet the single standard, they're the same thing. Mm-hmm. So suddenly your personal information equals PII equals personal data. You're a consumer request equals data subject, and the definition.
So does your program come with a dictionary?
It comes with an ever-evolving dictionary that changes on a daily basis, so it's not accurate in the slightest.
You're writing it in the sand?
I'm writing it before the meeting. No, honestly, it is contextual. So I'll say we have a differing definition, because if I walk into a meeting with, to your point, Paul, a European who has some awareness of data protection laws, and I say personal information or PII, their eyes roll, because they're like, here's a non-European coming to tell us how to manage our personal data, or our data protection measures. But on the flip of it, I walk into...
Or privacy measures.
But there's my role has privacy in the title, not data protection. So again...
And is that irritating?
No, not at all. Not at all. Because it did at the beginning. We're going on a tangent, but it did at the beginning because I was European focused. It should be data protection like the data protection officer, because that is the GDPR standard.
Right. And when was the beginning, Seán?
Beginning of time. So no, the GDPR, I'll say. The GDPR is the beginning of really data protection becoming truly formal across Europe. Thank you to the media, I'm going to largely say, for that. So tangent on a tangent. So if we try to revert back out of the rabbit hole, data privacy, I evolved to prefer data privacy as the term rather than data protection, because data protection, I feel, is far more about the protection of the data, and data privacy is about maintaining the privacy of the individual, which includes the data protection measures. So you can say I've been overly influenced by security in how my thought process has evolved, but that's how I see it. And that's why I actually prefer privacy in the title as opposed to data protection. Now, and then backing out, if I walk into a meeting with a European, say PII, eyes roll. If I walk into a meeting with a US individual who hasn't had much experience with data privacy or data protection, and I speak about personal data, they might say, is that not a European thing? We don't have personal data here. We have PII. So that's why...
Right, and it's like...
Yeah, that's why until your organization is well and truly educated and aware of global privacy laws, which is difficult to do because people change, you can't have...
And there are only about 1,000 of them.
Exactly.
So.
Right.
So if you set your definition, and in your room, in your privacy team, you get your group think and say, these are our definitions, we're not going to change, you're going to disconnect with users across the business,
right,
depending where you are.
That flexibility that has to be in your privacy officer's skill set. You have to be flexible and creative. And you're right. Definitions often include a lot of caveats, may include possibly caveats, lots.
Such as.
Yeah, you're right. And I do recall, Seán, and tell me if I need to cut this out, when I came and did training to your security and IT teams, there was a lot of disconnecting because of the terms being used in getting them to understand where they relate to in the process. There's a lot of disconnection when you start talking terms, because IT people in particular are very well trained in focusing on the binary aspect. It either is or it isn't. And it's hard for them to be able to cross that line as well and understand the flexibility that privacy brings. Everything's gray. We don't have a 1 and a 0. We got all the dots in between.
So I think that the definitions are very understandable for the first half of the definition. Then when you start evolving from direct identifiers to suddenly indirect identifiers or combinations of identifiers or possible inferences from indirect from the combination of identifiers, suddenly then any logical individual will say, well, how do I quantify that statement? Now,
Right.
I'm
Right.
looking at data. Give me the conditions. If A then B, what is the formula? What is the algorithm? So yeah, it's difficult to connect some of the full definitions of terms, whether it be personal data, personal information.
The amorphous concepts that we live by.
I like that. I might steal that phrase. But that can be difficult. So it's important when you engage with your business that you have flexibility. And that's why I will never say never. I will
Never say never.
I will never jump to the conclusion and say everybody understands what personal information is, or personal data, or a access request. Access request is one that I have to define the most, because access doesn't relate to a copy of information in a general layman, non-privacy aware individual. I find commonly access requests bracket access to information. That is a common definition expansion. So yes.
Well, then I will close us out with two questions. Paul's going to shoot me on this one. I'm going to close us out with two questions, and you can combine them if you like. One is, when I asked you to come on the show, was there anything in particular that you wanted to make sure that you share with our listeners? Because you have a lot of experience geographically, worldwide, in privacy, in data protection, in a very fluid field with so many different constituents and activities. I mean, seriously. But the other thing is, what do you think is the number one skill that someone in your position needs to have, whether it's a personality trait or a professional skill or whatever?
Number one skill. There is no number one skill. The reason I say that is you have technically minded and technical background individuals leading enormous privacy programs, and you have the reverse of very legal minded individuals leading extensive programs. What is critical is that you recognize your strengths, your background, and what skills you need to flex to round the privacy program. If you have a significant background in technology, so I have a background with engineering and technology, you need to evolve your privacy, your legal skills. If you're legally minded, you need to start looking at technology. You need to maybe do it, looking at the IPP, the management qualifications, or the technology qualifications. How can you round your experience? I would say a number one personality attribute that someone should follow, could be managing a privacy program or other compliance program, is that you are, and I'm going to steal a phrase from Ray Dalio, is radically open-minded and radically transparent. Your business user is out to improve the business. They are not. They do not have an agenda to misuse personal data.
Right.
You do not have an agenda to limit the business capability of growth. So what you need to do is create that common ground with your business user, with your technology users, to ensure you both achieve your goals, business growth and compliance. And
I really can't imagine closing the episode on anything better than that.
Well, we'll leave it there.
That was fantastic.
Absolutely. We'll leave it there. Thank you, Seán, for being with us today. And thank you to our listeners for joining us for yet another episode of Serious Privacy. If you like our series, please do tell your friends and colleagues about us and rate and review our episodes in your favorite podcast app. Should you have any questions or suggestions, and especially if you would like to be a guest, please reach out to us via seriousprivacy@trustarc.com or via Twitter @podcastprivacy. You'll find Kay on Twitter as Heart of Privacy and myself as EuroPolB. Until next week, goodbye.
Bye, y'all.
That was Serious Privacy.
If you're a data protection or privacy professional, you already know the pressure. Non-stop regulatory change, AI oversight, internal demands, and the expectation to somehow stay ahead of it all. And the old patchwork of tools just isn't cutting it anymore.
No. That's why TrustArc created a modern privacy management platform powered by Arc Intelligence. The TrustArc platform brings your workflows, evidence, research, tasks, and applications all together in one unified and intelligent workspace so you don't waste time digging, clicking, or context switching.
With Ask Arc, your privacy assistant, you can ask plain language questions about laws, jurisdictions, or even your own program data and get credible, cited answers based on NIMBY research and more than 1,000 global laws. It's explainable, transparent, and purpose-built for data protection and privacy.
So if you need to add a vendor, create a cookie banner, or start an assessment, quick actions take formally complex tasks, turn them into bite-sized guided workflows to save you time.
It's a platform that thinks like you, works like you, and helps you move faster with confidence, whether you're a seasoned DPO or you're just getting started.
See how modern privacy gets done. Explore Arc at trustarc.com/serious-privacy. That's trustarc.com/serious-privacy.